Good evening, everybody. Super excited to be here on a Thursday night. As you guys know, our new nights are Thursday nights, not doing Sunday mornings anymore. We are doing Thursday nights. So we are here for Thursday nights. I've got a lot to talk about, as you can probably imagine. So I spent the week, right? I spent the week with getting houses ready and getting them listed. And so, like I told you, I said, hey, I'm selling. Here's what I'm selling. I'm selling my single family stuff. I think that market's capped out, putting my money where my mouth is. I believe that market is going to get soft. And I think the median minus stuff is still going to be pretty good. Where I am, a median house is about $440,000 for a 3-bed, 2-bath, single family house. And so what I've looked at is saying, hey, I want to take those assets and take those dollars and move them into different assets. Even if I have a rate at 8%, doesn't matter. Doesn't bother me. I don't really care. Because it's all about what I'll likely do on that deal is I will liquidate a number of properties. I will then go buy something with that cash. And then I'll give you guys something to kind of look forward to as you guys continue to grow your portfolio. So here's one of the fun, cool things you guys can continue to look forward to. So I have a portfolio that is a portfolio loan. And that portfolio loan has, I think it's either 9 or 10 loans in it. Larry Bird, oh man, God bless you. One of the greatest basketball players of all time. I'm from the Boston area. I'm 47, so I grew up watching Larry Legend play. And sadly, when I really got into it, that was towards the late part of the 80s. And, sadly, his back was kind of gone by then. But yeah, he unbelievable. So super excited you guys are here. Uneducated economist, good buddy, good guy. Loves Simon. Actually found his stream and then introduced myself. And I said, hey, I love your ideas. And I completely agree with them. And I think that people are missing it. And so so Simon's a great guy. I'm the same way. I'm uneducated. I'm a 9th grade dropout. So I didn't even make it out of high school. But I've got 23 years investing in real estate, and I've got 26 years in corporate America that I just retired from back in February. For those of you who don't know, I retired as an executive at a software company. So what's really interesting is that as I continue to look at the market, and one of the things that you guys can look forward to is one of the things that you get to later on in your investing career is something called a portfolio loan. That can mean two things. A portfolio loan is either it's a bunch of properties in one loan that the bank then houses, and they basically give you a loan on that entire portfolio. That's one thing that's called a portfolio loan. The other thing that they call a portfolio loan is when they actually don't sell that. Most banks resell those loans, and then they get paid to be the servicer of those loans. Bank of America and most of the mortgages that they have, I got news for you. They don't own those mortgages. Fannie and Freddie own most of those mortgages, and Bank of America collects fees to service them. That's where the whole trouble came from in the late 2000s, 2005 to 2007. That's where a lot of the trouble came in. The trouble came in because the people that were making the loans weren't the people that were holding the loans. So if I'm just making it and I'm selling it, guess what? I'm probably not going to have the strictest criteria. I just need to get more loans that I can sell to this guy over here. That's basically what happened in 05, 6, and 7 was that the loan terms were just absolute garbage. And that's what they called them, liar loans. No income, no job, no assets, ninja. But that's what they called them, liar loans, because then they would do it off of what somebody would sign and just say, I make $300,000 a year. No income verification. Who thought that was a good idea? So anyway, it's just one of those kind of silly things. I was actually trying to listen to something in my ear as well, because I was trying to get an update on something. But so we'll shut that off because I want to give you guys my undivided attention. And I can't multitask with one in my ear and trying to talk at the same time. So what we're looking at is, so there's portfolio loans. One is it's 9, 8, 9, 10 loans that the bank will then own and hold, or it is the bank says, I'm just going to take this out of my ear. The bank says, hey, we're going to hold that paper on our books. So usually, believe it or not, they're even more conservative. They're even more conservative because now they're directly attached. So what's really the biggest difference is when they're holding that paper, they're going to write to a different standard but a better standard than if they were going to sell that loan to Fannie Freddie. When you guys start to become bigger landlords now, and this is where it's valuable, make relationships, create opportunities. But I had mortgages at 4 different banks. I made my power move to consolidate when I went to a bank and said, hey, listen, you own 5 of these mortgages, but there's 5 that you don't own. And so you're going to get 5 net new loans and you're going to get 5 refinance loans. And that's where I worked out a negotiated deal with them to say, I want 4% debt. And at the time, homeowners were getting 3.5, 3.75, but investors were getting 4.5 or 5. But I said, I want 4% debt. So we worked together. We were able to put that deal together, 4% debt. So we get the deal together. It's at 4% debt, but now they have this portfolio of loans. Well, that portfolio of those 9 or 10 loans, let's just for easy numbers sake, let's say it is $1 million worth of loans, even though, as you can imagine, it's not $1 million worth of loans. But let's say it's $1 million worth of loans. Well, what happens is that loan can be a 70% loan to value ratio. So if I've got $1 million worth of debt on it, then it's worth about call it 1.45 million. Okay. Because you take 30% off of that, and that's your 70% loan to value. Follow me so far. So now we're down to $1 million worth or $1 million of debt on $1.45 million worth of assets. Now I did that deal in 2021. Have properties increased in value since then? Absolutely. Have they increased a lot? In many cases, they have. Some assets in that portfolio have increased more than other assets in that portfolio. But let's just say instead of that 1.45, and guys, pay attention on this, bookmark this. It's minute 10 of the stream or 9 of the stream. Bookmark this. This is really important because I'm going to get you a free house. Yeah, no joke. I'm going to get you a free house with the strategy. Free. Yeah, free. Cost you nothing. Watch this. So we've got these 10 assets in there. They're worth 1.45 million. The bank's given me $1 million worth of debt. Okay. What you do, and obviously this only works in an up economy. So this play doesn't work regardless of the economy. That's not what I'm saying. No one has a play that works regardless of the economy. You're going to have fluctuation in that no matter what. And if you aren't, then you're leaving too much on the table in a good time. But yes, trade better. I'm glad you're paying attention because I did say free house. So here's how that works. We've got the loan of $1 million. We've got $1.45 million worth of assets. However, now this is in 2021 and now it's 2024. And so I would argue that most of the values are they're either peaked, at their peak, right around their peak, plus or minus a couple of percent on their peak. But largely speaking, I think that they've peaked. I think it's going to be close. Let's say it hasn't. Let's say it's not. Doesn't matter to me for the sake of this exercise, because watch what's going to happen. So now that those assets are now worth, let's say $2 million. Okay. So if they're worth $2 million, watch this. If they're worth $2 million, then the 70% loan to value ratio on that portfolio is how much? It's $1.4 million. So if $1.4 million is now is the amount of debt that I'm allowed to have on that portfolio, I can call the bank and say, I'd like to request that we reevaluate that portfolio. Now, what does that mean? That means that they go out and they hire an appraiser, and that's going to be my money. It's going to be my expense. But they go hire an appraiser, and that appraiser is probably going to charge about $5,000. Probably about $5,000 to do those 10 appraisals is what they're going to charge. So they'll charge $5,000 to do those 10 appraisals. That number comes in, and I end up being right because I'm really good at this. I end up being right, and it ends up being worth $2 million. So they say, okay, We are willing to give you $1.45 million. You currently have debt of $1 million. We'll give you another $450,000. Now, that sounds really awesome because we're not that close, me and the bank. So you're going to give me almost $500,000 just because we revalued this portfolio that I bought so well and managed so well and increased rents so well that now you're saying I've got another $450,000 of equity you're going to let me take out. Now, some people will take out that equity and say, hey, I got 450 grand. Here's the thing. That's not a taxable event, everybody, because all you did was increase the amount of debt that you have on the assets. Now, the cautionary tale is here are the things you need to make sure that happen when you do this. You need to make sure that when you take that extra 450 out, that you understand what the cost of servicing that debt is. And then you need to make sure, like I do, that I still have A, the 70% loan to value, so I'm good there. But B, I need to still hit my numbers, i.e., I need 1.3 times what my debt service is. My debt service is now on 1.45 million. Let's say the debt service on that is $10,000 a month. I need to make sure that I'm bringing in at least $13,000 a month in the eyes of the bank, because they want to see a 1.3 debt service coverage ratio, DSCR, debt service coverage ratio. It's the same type of loan. However, this is how banks look at you and they say, we want to make sure that you have debt service coverage on the ratio. Debt service coverage ratio, right? So here's where it gets even cooler. So I take out that money as my option, and then I look at it and I go, you know what? I'm hitting 1.4, so I'm way higher than the 1.3. I'm at 1.4, and I can now take this $450,000, which is a loan. It is not a windfall. It is not taxable. I'm taking out debt on my assets. Do you wonder where the wealth gap comes from? Don't listen to these idiots that say that the wealth gap comes from income. It doesn't have anything to do with income at all. The wealth gap is directly correlated to the amount of assets one has and the time that they've had that asset. That's where the wealth gap comes from. And if you want to step to that and have an argument, I'm more than happy to make you look foolish. But as we look at this process for re-levering, I don't want to take the 450 grand. You look at me and you go, Matt, what are you, nuts? You don't want to take the $450,000? You hit your debt service coverage ratio, you're at 1.3 or you're at 1.4 and you only need to be at 1.3. It's tax-free money at $450,000. Matt, why? Why don't you want to take that money? And here's why. Because that ratio comes out the way that it does, I can take that $450,000 and I can say, I want to apply that value to other assets in the portfolio, and I want you to release me that asset with no debt on it. Been there, done that. This will be my third time doing it. So I actually, in the increased value of my portfolio, I now take that equity that I have, but this is only a portion of the 70%. This is where I'm unlocking the gold. I'm only getting $450,000, but that's at a 70% debt to income ratio, or 70% loan to value ratio. What is more important for me to do is say, hey, you know what? Instead of you giving me that $450,000, all of these assets minus these two still actually hit the original 1.45 million. So the other $550,000 that I increased in equity, that 1.45 million, that's awesome. But I want to just keep the same amount of debt, the same $1 million of debt. But what I want to do is I want to take that $450,000 and basically get assets exited out of the portfolio. So I go from having 10 assets in the portfolio to having 8. But those loans got completely paid off. That spoke for, again, if you guys are following along. So now I take those 2 assets out. Now the portfolio isn't worth $2 million anymore. Now it's worth back to $1.45 million. I still have the $1 million in debt, but now that $1 million in debt is associated with only 8 properties. And I've just gotten 2 properties that have been discharged to me free and clear. Now, there's a bunch of tax ramifications about that. Obviously, you guys need to talk to your tax people, but I just taught you how to get a free house, and I've done it. And it's not by using other people's money. It's not by giving away equity. It's actually getting a free house. You're not selling equity to anybody. And here's the thing. Here's where the crazy numbers come in. So they discharge those 2 assets to me. I now get those 2 assets. When I get those 2 assets back, what if I decide to sell them? So they basically gave me back 2 properties that were worth on their list sheet about, or the equity in that was worth about $400,000. However, that's only 70% of the number of what they're actually worth. And maybe they're worth more in the market. So it's actually not 400. It's actually 400 is 70% of the number that it actually is. So it's actually more like 540. So I just tapped into not only getting these assets discharged to me for free, but now I get to sell them, and I'm not going to get the 400. I'm actually going to get 540. I've just unlocked equity that previously was locked in due to loan to value. I mean, tell me where else you guys are learning this stuff. I'd love to know. I'd love to know. This is how I got rich. This is how I did it. This is why I explain it. So as you grow your portfolio, you can have it multiple different places. You can have multiple loans different places. But then eventually you get into the position where you say, you know what? I want to get these into a portfolio loan. Now's the right time to refi. I told you guys in 2020, if you were watching me then, I told you I'm going to do 2 massive refis. I ended up doing 3. But I did, I think it was 9 properties, 10 properties, and then 4 or 5 properties. And so I did it a ton. And then I bought a bunch of stuff at under 4 because I knew what I was doing and I wasn't a dipshit crash bro. So here's where it's really, really powerful. Now I've sold those properties, or no, I've now gotten those properties. They're free and clear of debt. Now I can be aggressive in negotiating and get a deal done. But if I want to put it on the market for a month and not get any attention and put it out for an outrageous number, but realize I'm the only game in town, maybe I get lucky and I get somebody. Maybe I don't get somebody and I don't get lucky. And then I have to come down to earth and I have to reduce the price. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. I don't owe any mortgage on it anymore. So I don't have any bill other than the property bill. And in a lot of cases, I probably still have a tenant in there. This is how playing the game in an elite fashion makes you rich. So I don't hear this from any of these other investors, but this is what I'm doing. And so I'm taking these 4 properties, 2 of which are in one of these portfolio loans. And I am actually going through the process of now I will have all of my properties. I will go through the process with all of my properties. And all of my properties will get appraised, and then I'll see what that number is, and then I'll pick which properties I want to sell. I'll tell the bank I want these properties discharged to me. Then when they get discharged to me, I will then market them and I will sell them. And maybe I take the cash and I pay cap gains. Maybe I don't. Maybe I 1031 the things and I avoid paying taxes because I 1031 into something. So I 1031 into something, and here's the next crazy step that will blow your mind, that will probably make you spit out whatever you're drinking. The next thing that I do is I 1031 those assets. I buy 2 other properties. Maybe it's 2 for 1. Maybe it's 2 for 4, because I've traded 1 for 3. I've also traded 3 for 1. But here's now the next step. The next step is I've 1031. I have, let's say, $500,000, right? I take that $500,000 and I find one asset where I can do a many to one, right? Or I even match them up, and just for sake of ease, I'll not do 1, I'll do 2. Make it an easier 1031 exchange. I'll do 2 units, but here's the thing. The $250,000 I have sitting, or $550,000 I have sitting there, because now I've sold them out. So I don't have 400, I have 550. Now I have $550,000. What does that give me? How much buying power does that give me? It gives me about $2.5 million of buying power. So I can do that, but you know what? I'm not really loving the deals that I see out there. I kind of think they suck. They're not particularly good, and people are buying for appreciation, and I don't love that strategy. We all know that I don't love that strategy. So here's what I now do. I take those 2 properties, I 1031 exchange into other properties, but what do? I buy something that, let's just say, is 400K. Let's just say that's the number. So it's 400K. So it's going to take 20% to buy both of those assets. So now I'm paying the 400K. I'm paying 80,000 here. I'm paying 80,000 here. So I have 160,000 out of my 550,000 I have to put back into the deals, right? But I actually buy both of those deals with all of the money. I buy it with all the money. So I take the 250,000, actually it's 275. I take the 275,000 I have here, the 275,000 I have here. Now what do? I go and I buy an asset. Now I want something that ideally is about $400,000 because I only want to leave about 80 grand behind. Maybe 100 grand behind. Because some banks will say, hey, on a refi, we only want to get to this number. So let's just say 400 and 400 I just bought with my 250s, right? So 250 or 275, I just turned into 400. That's now 800. But here's what I can do at the closing table. I can actually, at the closing table, when I close on that 1031 exchange, I can do a backdoor, not sure why they call it that, and they don't, but I can do a backdoor refi. I backdoor refi that deal. And when I backdoor refi that deal, $400,000 is the sale price. They let me pull out 300 grand. Yeah, no joke. They let me pull out 300 grand. So I pull out 300 grand on the $400,000 asset. I pull out 300 grand on the other asset. And I now have $600,000 sitting in my account, tax-free, penalty-free, and I just picked up 2 more assets. I'd love to hear it. Where else are you guys hearing that? I don't operate under an LLC. LLCs are not the right way to do business. Just being honest with you, not trying to take it don't take it personally. LLCs are not the way to do it. That's absolutely 1000% the wrong way to do this. Because I just did all of that with no LLCs, and I've done it for 24 years with no LLC. So I have no real estate being held in an LLC. So you guys tell me, where else are you hearing this? Where else are you hearing this? I only have 9,000 something subscribers, but there's people out there with millions of subscribers that don't know what the hell they're talking about or the stuff that they're doing. You have to become such human origami, and you have to have a team of accountants to the caliber of Mark Kohler, who is probably the world's greatest accountant, aside from mine, Bob Langworthy, who's the best. So this is the thing. You're not hearing this anywhere. And it's because they don't do it. I would do it in my own name and trust only. Yes. Yep. You're exactly right. Because that's what I've done it all. I've done it all in my trust. I don't even have to have it in my own separate name. We went through a process where we actually took everything that was in my name before I got married and we put it into the trust's name. So now I have a vehicle. If anything ever happens to me, if anything happens to my wife, if anything happens to both of us, we have a trust vehicle that will help us carry through. So I just taught you guys how to get free houses and then create interest loans that have interest on them that are paid back by your tenants. You still make your 10, 15% on the property. And PS, by the way, here's the good news. You still got your $550,000 sitting in your bank account. And now you can go buy things that you want to when the market corrects. So that is the monopoly level elite management thing that I do that you can do too. And it's just a matter of setting yourself up for that over a 10 or 12-year period. Listen, this is a marathon. It is not a sprint. It is not a sprint. Sometimes you're going to have a horrible market. You know, Dion was in a market where he saw that the market was increasing for him. So it shortened his time horizon to about 12 years. I had to go through the Great Recession. So guess what happened? Mine took longer. Mine took longer because this strategy only works in an up market. It doesn't work in a down market. So I had to wait until the market really started trending up. And the problem was it was here when I bought. It went to here, but I was still buying. And then it went to here. And I had to try and do everything I could to hold on to what I had. And then as I built back way past this. So this is how you play real life Monopoly and make millions and millions of dollars. And it's not any pyramid. It's not anything weird or funky. This is only how you structure asset management, how you structure the buildings that you're buying, and knowing that 10 years from now, guys, that's why this is so hard to get to, is because you need to be doing volume over the course of those few years. So that's where it works. Mike Reed. Yeah. If you're in New Hampshire, we're always looking for good people. Mike Reed. Good to have you, Mike. Welcome to the channel. So this is the kind of stuff that people just don't get. So let's jump into some questions. I know that you guys, I'm sure, have questions about this, but this is where, honestly, this is where you get a lead. This is where you tell this is why when guys in my position watch the blowhards that are talking about the market, I'm like, you have no clue. And you know what? You have to hit 17 to 30,000 hits on your next video in order to afford food this week, because you're a piker. You're a clown. And this is how rich people get way richer. Because did my life get a whole lot easier in the last 5 years? Yeah, every 5 years is easier. The first 5 was really, really hard. The next 5 was super hard because I had to hold on to all the assets that I had. The next 5, building. The next 5, more building, but now multipliers are attached to everything, not additions, not additionals, not additional house here, an additional property. No, it was a multiplier. It was 23 deals in 17 months. And you don't have to do it to that level. But now think about the way that I just structured getting into that deal, then exiting in that deal, and then buying the next asset, and then having it cash flow, growing your empire, and you just created hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash. I'm just saying. I mean, can I get an amen? All right, let's go into questions. Dennis, REI and life struggles. Dennis, I'm glad you're here. We'll be, feel free to bring up any question you have. BuzzTune, good to see you. Steven, hey everyone. Hey guys, how are you? Larry Bird, like I said, great to have you. Very excited to have you here. Robert Fernelli, hello Matt. Hello Robert. I want to hear. I saw you put some other stuff down in the chat. I haven't read it yet, so I hope that you updated me on what exactly happened with my recommendation last week. Steven, same Larry. Yep. Hey, Robert. Yep. Steven, don't like the Celtics. The Heat always have trouble with them. Yes, Steven, I completely understand. And that's true. What's really funny is for the longest time until this year, I would have traded Brown for Jimmy Butler in a second. That was just me. But I think I always thought Brown was a better player than Tatum. I'm not a big Tatum guy. I like Brown better. Trade better. Hey, how are you? Good to have you. Robert Fernelli, you were right and I'm wrong. All right. I'm going to have to read any sentence that starts like that. Better pictures made a huge difference for the ad. Guys, this is what I tell you all the time. $150, $100, whatever. Get a pro photographer out there, have them set it up with lighting. They'll be there for an hour or two. Then they'll do some touch-ups and put it through some filters. And then it's going to look 1,000 times better. And here's the thing. Then those are your pictures for that unit for the next 10 years. This isn't an investment that you make every single time you rent it out. This is an investment you make once every 10 years. If that, it's really not needed. It's really not needed to do it every single year. So I'm really excited to hear that. Still failed because it took 3 to 4 days to get 100 people to respond. 3 to 4 days to get 100 people to respond. Now, Robert's numbers are typical of what we see when we write the ad the way that we write it, when we curate the experience the way that we do. We see 100 requests in the first 2-3 days. Our record was something like 400 and something requests in the first 2 days. That just made me know that I was an idiot and I way mispriced the property. That's the truth. And so we had to change that pricing because I don't want 400 people. I want more like, I want that 5 to 10, but that 5 to 10, that's what's changed in this market is only about 10% of your tenant base is going to be any good. 90% are going to be complete dross and shit. They're going to just be garbage. They're going to be people with 500 credit scores. They're going to be people with enough more luggage and baggage than the queen. They're not a fit for you, and do not rent out fast to the wrong person. It will cost you a fortune. Don't do it. And if you're small enough as a landlord, meaning financially, it could blow you up. So don't do it. Stay the course. John Williams, to his credit, he had one that I think he had out there for 6 or 8 weeks. We had a quick conversation. I said, send me the ad. I looked at the ad, made some adjustments in the ad. He's in the lumberjack landlord boot camp. So I wanted to do that. So I had to do that for him. I had to make him successful because he was doing all the right stuff. We just had to make some tweaks in the ad. We had to make some tweaks on the pricing, and it wasn't just pricing. It was just because it was a very, 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 very small shift. But when it was all said and done, he had the place rented in 6 days. 6 days after we made those adjustments. My methods and my processes are 24 years of expertise of making and watching the market shift based on what we do. And I can fill a unit. I just did it with this one girl. We walked through it. She was one of the students. And I just said, listen, your pricing is like 15% higher than market. This isn't going to rent. I said, you can get market, but you can't get 15% more than market. She tried the 15% more than market, couldn't get there. However, eventually got there as soon as she got to market price. And so she was still in that upper tier and as expensive as everybody else. That still happened. It's just, it's not a silver bullet ray gun that you can just name your price and you get it. But 100 to respond in 3 to 4 days. I'm looking forward to reading the rest of what you say. PE turned RE. Love that. Howdy, y'all. Good to see you. CJ, my man, CJ. Getting some vacation in. Good for you, buddy. I know you've been on a sprint the last few months, so congratulations on that. Robert Fairley, you were also right on the about 90% were trash. 5% were decent or just under my criteria. 5% were good. Yep. Showed today to about 10 groups. So definitely going to get someone. Robert, I love it. This is what we're going for. And this is why I abused you last week. And this is the result that we got. You got the pictures done, like I said. You followed the rules with what we do and how we advertise the units. Then you clustered all the showings at the same time. Love. This is what we do. We try and create that FOMO. And then lastly is now you've got 10 groups to choose from. And now you get to put yourself in the driving seat saying, which one of these am I going to pick? Which one's the best fit for me? And the best fit isn't always the one with the best credit scores. The best fit is the one that you think can stay there the most number of years and also be a good tenant. A lot of people are just like, yeah, but I'm a tenant's dream. I'm a landlord's dream. Yeah, but you're going to be gone in 24 months. So do I really care? Like these other people are going to be renters forever. They want to stay here. They're looking for a home. The last place they lived, they were there for 9. I just did this with somebody. They were there in their last place, 9 years. The previous place before that, they were there for 10. So they spent 19 years in 2 places. Dear God, I hope that I can keep them for even 5 years, and people say, oh, why would you only keep them for 5 years? Well, because they might eventually get priced out. I try not to do that to existing tenants, but depends on the city, depends on the towns, depends on the water rules, all that sort of stuff. So CJ, glad to hear about the picks, Robert. Yep. Still great response rate. Do you do professional picks or retook them? That's a great question. Trade better. Hey, Steven. Yeah. Old guy REI. Hello to the Contreras family. Good to have you guys here as always. I did say free, trade better, and now you can tell me whether or not I was being truthful. It was free. Good morning, good evening, Wealth Building Journey. Good to have you here with us. Robert Finelli, about 70% came from the Facebook Marketplace, 30% Zillow. Yep. And basically no one on Craigslist. Interesting. This was also a wake-up call that I needed door loop for applications, paper applications, and work docs. Didn't work out. Yeah, that's one of the really cool things that I teach you guys about property management systems. This is part of, and this is why for me, it is more expensive. And so I'm cognizant of that. But I tell you, having an enterprise class system that you never have to move off of is always my goal, because let's say you keep on growing and you need to then move into another system. You just have no idea that it costs thousands of dollars. It takes hundreds of hours of time to move all your data, or the company's like, yeah, we can move it for you. And it's $500 or $1,000. And then they do. And there's always going to be stuff missing. Just the way it goes, which really kind of sucks. But that's where for me, it's like I waited too long. I waited too long. We were 60 units and we didn't have a property management system. That was a mistake on my part. That was a mistake because we are infinitely more informed and better positioned to affect a change since we got our system. So I would strongly encourage you guys to do that. Both picks professional anyways. Yep. But got professional anyways for later. Very good. Aloha from Hawaii. Hello, Marco Shiro. Good to have you. Wealthwood Rentals. Hello. There's Cynthia. Oh, I love it. And you have your own logo with your own account. I love it. It looks awesome. Trade better. That is amazing. I agree. Thank you very much. Luke Devine. 200K purchase, 50K reno, sold for 300K. If I 1031, do I get my reno money back? Nope. That's all the tax thing. That's all how it shows up on paper. So you could do like a cost segregation study depending on the work that you did. Better question for an accountant, but no, you can't take out your 50. Basically, the proceeds of that house go into an account that you cannot touch, and all of that money gets reinvested in the next house. So no, you can't get your 50K back. Not that way. Wealth building journey, listening exactly from the beginning at 2x speed. That's exactly where the wealth gap comes from. Owning assets over time. Take action, ladies and gentlemen. I completely agree. That's exactly right. Robert Farnelli. So Matt, where is that door loop discount that I decided to take the plunge? Very cool. I'm actually I actually kid you not. I just spoke with my contact yesterday. Yesterday. Spoke with her for the first time in a few months yesterday. We've been playing tag back and forth. Couldn't catch up. Finally did yesterday. And so I expect to have something sooner. So door loop is growing quickly. And so what you find is that people that used to be in the role that you have found them accustomed to and where you made that relationship, they're now somewhere else in the company. So I've gone through like 3 different people at the company because they're growing quickly. So that's one of the frustrating parts for me, but it's a good frustration. There's my good buddy, Dion. Hey pal, how you doing? It is Thursday already. It's true. Oh, sorry guys. I'm tired. Sorry. It was a long day. Today we did daddy-daughter day with my oldest daughter, Bryn. And so we jam-packed a bunch of activities into about 5 hours. Not for any other reason other than we like to be efficient and effective. Panatha for life. What's this guy's name? I'm the lumberjack landlord. What LLC does he operate under? I don't. Mind blown. Thank you very much. Steven, nowhere. LOL. That's true. I would do it all in my own name and trusts. That's the way I do it. I don't do it in LLCs. Matt is a monopoly guy in real life, except I think a better beard. He only has a mustache. Mike Reed, can I work for you? Handyman here. Invested 4 houses, 1 duplex. Love to invest more. Yeah, you can work for me if you live in New Hampshire. Panatha for life. I did hard money loan and the lender said not to a trust. I was like, okay, need to relax. And I went to another hard money lender and they did. Yeah. A lot of people make up those rules because that's the people that are giving them money. That's the requirement they have. If they had any idea that it actually means nothing, it's just but there's always attorneys involved and attorneys have creating LLCs into a cottage industry. And if you want to know a ton more about that, check out my good buddy, Dion Talk Financial Freedom. He's got a great video on it and it's really true. It's the way it is. Panatha for life. How do we ask questions? This exact way. You just put it in the chat and I'm happy to help. Matt, again, Matt, again, you are wrong again. Real estate investing is not a sprint. It's an Appalachian Trail hike. I know I always forget that part, but it's only because you're the only one that relates to the Appalachian Trail hike. Other people do. I just haven't met them yet. Nino. So you're not buying anymore unless it's a home run. Nope. I am buying other deals. I've bought 2 other deals this year. I bought a big commercial property this year and I bought a big I bought a fourplex. I bought a fourplex this year as well. So I am still buying deals. The asset class for me that I want to get out of is single family homes. I want to get out of, and I only had a few and I had them for quite some time. I had a lot of equity in them and the rents coming in were okay, but I could just, there was so much locked equity in that 30%, right? So let's say it's a market house. Well, if a market house is 500, or let's call it 400. If the market house is $400,000, I've got $100,000 of equity in there that I can't even tap based on a 70% loan to value. That's not very good. Maybe, 75% loan to value. That's not very good. So then I've got to worry about, okay, even at the 300 and an 8% rate, does the thing even cash flow? No, it probably doesn't. So the best thing to do with that asset is sell it. I only owe whatever I own. There's one of the houses I'm selling. I think I owe like 30 grand, 20 grand on. So, I'll walk away from the closing table with hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's kind of the idea. Wait, I don't see someone saying the Celtics. Oh yeah, I see the Celtics. Yes, I see the Celtics. I'm not a massive Celtics fan. I'm much more a Bruins fan than I'm a Celtics fan. I watch probably 110 NHL games a year. It's up a lot. Roldan, hey buddy, how you doing? Good to see you. Did I ever tell you how much I appreciate the asymmetry of your office background? On point. I knew that had to mean something to some people. I go bonkers watching channels where there's not a level of asymmetry and it's very hodgepodge, or I can't watch it. I go cuckoo up here. More cuckoo up here. Dylan, good to see you. Hope y'all had a good week. Hope the same for you, sir. Trey Better, about to replace a water heater. It is gas and a pain to maintain. Is there any reason I should not just put an electric hot water heater? Yeah, I mean, for me, my preference is electric. They're easier to maintain. They're much less expensive to replace. Very often, if you're willing to do a little bit of work on your own, you can replace them yourselves if you're feeling saucy. Obviously check the rules and such like that with your cities, that they have and what they allow you to do. But with gas, I can't. I don't have a gas license. No one's going to let me work on their gas license because they could lose their license because I did something stupid. So that's a big thing. Yep. So I do like electric. I do. And so the big thing is, do you have space in your panel for it? But the breaker to do that is maybe a $35 breaker. The amount of wiring that you need is probably $50 worth of wiring. And then the electrician that you need is probably, if you just have it down in the right place in the basement or know about where it's going to go, he can actually do something called bringing over a line and dropping it and doing like a little tie thing in it. And then that's called a whip. And so he leaves the whip right there. And then what ends up happening is the electrician comes, or the plumber comes in, brings the two lines, the cold water in and the hot water out, brings those lines in. And then the electrician comes in and then they just hook it up. And it's a couple of wire nuts, twisty tie, or a couple of wire nuts when you remove the cap and you're done. So it's something that's a whole lot faster to be able to do. Oh no, Lou Dobbs died. Oh, that's a bummer. That sucks. Lou Dobbs was a really classy guy. He was a great anchor. He's not the only one that I watched, but he's probably one of 10 that I really liked, genuinely liked. So that's sad. That's sad. Thanks for letting me know, Chester. That sucks. That does suck. I think I asked this before, but forgot what you said. Do you look on Zillow, Facebook, etc. for rent box? Isn't that asking, not actual? Well, but that's what you're doing is you're tracking those. So when you start the process, you're noting the property. And then every couple of days, you're updating that list. So then you see that it disappears. Now, is it possible they took it off the market? Yeah, but what else are they going to do with it? They took it off the market because they didn't rent it. It's a rental. Of course they rented it. So what you can do is, and I know you're not afraid to ask those questions, I can assume that that's the number that they got because very few landlords reduce the rents. However, you can make spot calls and you can call up the agent and say, yeah, I'd seen that you'd had this property on blah, blah, blah. Is that still available? And they'll say, no, it isn't. You'll say, oh, what did that rent out for? And then they'll tell you, and then you already have in your spreadsheet how much that was. That's why the rent box is so important, is because it really dials you in. It makes you an aggregator of data. And while Rentometer and places like that have tried to do it, they don't do it consistently enough across all platforms all over the web. They don't do it consistently enough where they can actually get that information. And there's one, I know Craigslist wouldn't allow for an API. I know Zillow does allow for an API. And I've got a big announcement coming too with somebody that we're going to do a pretty awesome collaboration for everybody. But yeah, So that's where putting that together yourself. So you're doing three things. One, you're learning the market better than anybody else because no one else is doing that in the market. Number one. Number two is you actually are understanding and seeing what is actually trading at what numbers in what areas, not just some spit out, feed out from some application. Know your market. Know it better than that's the thing. Know it better than the agents that are doing rentals. My rental agent still asks me, hey, so I had somebody else come to me and this is the unit that they have. What do you think I should price that for? That's your job, not my job. But I will help her every once in a while, for sure. Let's see. How many months of reserves do you keep per property? So I don't. I got to a point where I had $50,000, but everything that we fix is out of cash flow. Everything we maintain is out of cash flow. Everything, all the employees that we pay and contractors pay is out of cash flow. We still have kind of that emergency fund as a just in case, but it just sits there. It honestly, it just sits there, and it's just in case the cash flow ever doesn't go anywhere. Brandon Hatcher, hey, welcome to the channel, Brandon. Appreciate you. It's hard for W2s to wrap their head around this kind of thing. Yep, but it really is the way, and you can just print money and it quickly dwarfs your income and equity. You're exactly right. I had a really good paying job. I had a 6-figure job. I made really good money for a long time. But guess who retired before all of the 60-year-old and 70-year-old executives? Me. I did. Now they might have $1 million or $2 million or $3 million in a 401k, but that's not going to throw off nearly the amount of heat that an amazingly run and an elite managed portfolio. It's going to not even close. It's not going to be even close. Let's see. How do you know, Dylan, how do you know exactly what actual rents are then, since a lot of Zillow and Facebook never take off? That you can make the follow-up call. Yeah. You can follow-up call. If it's still on there, just make the follow-up call. Dylan, I talked to an investor about a 1031. He said if you have a property worth $300K, $220K loan, and a 1031, you can put sales price down as payment. Makes no sense to me. You have to pay off the loan. Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about. I would need it explained better by them. Rajesh Kumar, dear God, I humbly ask for your help and blessing in this bank account. Oh, interesting. Where were you on that one? Ban user and delete their comments. Boom. Sorry, Rajesh. Troy Robert. What's up, Matt from Northwest Washington? What's up, Troy? Good to have you here. Dividend Dave. Hey, pal. Good to see you, buddy. Robert Farinelli. Yeah, one person had an 800 plus credit score and she seemed like she would need a lot of management. Yes, that's exactly right. I always tell you those 800s, they're almost as rough as the 550s. People around the 650 range seem, exactly. They're more excited and they're better because there's a level of gratitude there because they are that middle class of tenant where everybody is always looking at them. And then the landlord has to go, you're just a little bit better than you. So I have tenants that come to me all the time and say, oh my word, I've spent, one guy had spent $750 on applications. He's like, I've spent $750 on applications and I haven't gotten a place. I was like, okay. And I said, send me the information that you send them. He goes, I can't, another $100. He goes, Matt, I'm nowhere. I'm $750 in. He goes, we don't have that money to keep on blowing an application. We're not going to get it. I said, just give me the information. So he gave me all the information. I went through it and I go, yeah, the place is yours. He goes, are you serious? And I go, yep. You work for this contractor. Yep. So I know where you work. I know who your boss is. You can be a good tenant for me? Yep. Cool. And they were a good tenant for about 2 years. And then they had a family issue and they left. That was okay. They were a great tenant for 2 years. Dylan McMahon, when do you add a washer dryer unit and how much rent typically? So you've asked that before. And so it depends. That's why you do the rent boxes, because you need to understand what other amenities other landlords have in the market to see what you need to do to compete on that higher level. Or if you need to just check it as a box and just say, I'm not going to compete on that level, because clearly allowing those two things in the unit, I make $50 a month more, but I have to provide the machines and all this other stuff. And then you just look at it and do the math, and it's not good math. CJ, I currently have one paid off property worth 175K, waiting for the right opportunity to reposition and redeploy some funds. Looking forward for that day to come. That's exactly right. It's exactly right. We'll have a couple properties that are paid off, but we're going to sell them. We're going to then turn that into a lot more funds and then have just that much more cash just sitting there. That's our goal. Yeah. Dylan, how do you know when to utility bill back and when not to? Again, rent box. If you master your rent box, you understand what all your competition is doing. You don't want to be the only guy doing that thing. Because if you're that only guy doing that thing, people are going to be like, oh, that's weird. What's the issue? It's not the way to do it. You want to be like the market. You want to be like the market. And that's the fastest way to be like the market, or the fastest way to be out of sync with the market is start doing things where you're like back billing for all this other stuff. You might be able to charge more money for rent and not do the back billing, but that's the stuff that you have to look at. Mark Ham. Hey, Matt, what is your opinion on escrow with your properties? Is it best to use escrow or pay taxes and insurance yourself? I have 2 rentals, one in escrow, one not. So I think it's a preference. So what we do is we actually, for me, we escrow taxes, and we pay for insurance. The reason that we do that is because the insurance company will take a credit card. And do I need the credit card to pay it? No, but I take it and I get the 100,000 points that I make every single year by paying my credit card, or by paying my property taxes, or my insurance bills with my credit card. That's one of the ways that I maintain the level of points that I have on cards, and I get the benefits that I do. Yeah. Dennis, REI struggles. What would you say the top 3 improvements you could make to your primary home to increase the value? Biggest bang for the buck? That's a great question. So for me, if it's an older property, I want to be doing the touchy feely stuff. I want to be doing the lights. So getting away from the single boob light in the ceiling and going to 4 LEDs. That's a big one. I want to do a kitchen, but again, kitchens are important. It's when you buy them right. We just did a kitchen for somebody. We did it for about $6,800, and the quotes that they were getting were $12,000. It's because that company needs to make that money to stay in business. I don't need it to stay in business. I pass them along at wholesale prices, covering my costs, because that's one of the perks of being in the program. So, yep. So I would say lights and lights, switches, and outlets, right? That's one thing. And usually that's a couple days of an electrician. And so usually you can find an electrician, depending on the market, for about $100. And so that might be $1,500 to have them swap out all your lights and switches and blah, blah, blah. The other thing that we do is doors. If you have hollow core doors, we like the nice solid core doors. So we pick a nice stylish door. Craftsman 3 is the one that we used. We talk about that in the course. And then the cabinets. We always redo the kitchen because we have access to really decent, really high-end cabinets, and we're able to do it for a fraction of the price. So other people are getting quotes for 10, 12, 13,000 bucks, and then they need another 6,000 bucks of labor to install it. We're getting in and out of kitchens for less than 10 grand installed. And when you have a brand new kitchen with brand new countertops and everything shiny and pretty, guess what? You're in the best position. So those are the things that I think are, the best value add things to do to places. Painting and things like that, that's kind of obvious, but you really want to have that paint pop, and that paint pops when you properly set up your color palette, like we talk about in the course. But that typically is what helps. Nino, I live in NH. Very cool. Welcome to the channel. It seems our market has a high barrier of entry, medium home price. What market are you in New Hampshire? Because there's like 7. So, and I don't say that condescendingly. There's literally like 7 markets in New Hampshire, and we're a small state, but we have such differentiating areas. So Nino, let me know what it is, and I'm happy to help. What's economic useful life? So it's basically the amount of time that something that you do lasts. So economically viable. So it's like you do a roof and that's going to phase out. That's a 30-year thing. That's why the IRS gives you 27 and a half years depreciation on a roof, because they expect it to last 27 and a half years or 30 years. They expect to be replacing it 27 and a half. Good morning, Laura, or good evening, Laura Samaniego. Robert Farinelli. I noticed some rental agents don't care and let things sit forever. They do. So there's plenty of those that do that. Because They don't know their numbers. They don't know the market. They don't know enough to sit there and tell the owner, so I talked to one of, I saw an ad for one of the agents that I've used. The ad basically was like $2,700. And I literally wrote her a note and I said, that number is ridiculous. She's like, he won't reduce it. And I said, if you're getting paid based on the unit getting listed or getting rented, that's not a good listing to take because you can spend your time on 10 other listings. Where that does make sense is if you don't have enough volume that's keeping you busy otherwise, then you should be doing anything you can to get your volume up. And number two is you need to be able to make the case to that landlord why that number is the wrong number. Because if you go into it, they're going to be like, yeah, that person was complete abject failure. Why? They couldn't get the place rented. Why? Well, they're never going to say, because I'm a jerk and my price was too high, I wasn't flexible and I didn't actually know the market. They're never going to say that. So that's what's going to pass along as making your life more difficult in that career, in that area, if you just can't have honest conversation. And the thing is like, let's say they say it's $2,700 first month and you're like, I just think that's too high. And then they'd say, well, I don't care. That's what the number is. And you can say, all right, sounds good. Let's do this. Based on our feedback over the first 30 days, if it hasn't rented, then let's cut it down to 2,400. And a lot of times they'll agree to that. And you can say, listen, I don't want you to lose months of rent, but I also want you to get rented, but I know that price is a little bit high. You don't want to take your expertise or your word for it. If I'm a busy person, I just jet and I don't work with that person anymore. In the beginning of your career, you kind of have to work with everybody, largely speaking. At the middle of your career, you get to be more picky choosy. At the end of your career, you do whatever you want, largely speaking. People are bad at moving things. Yeah, for sure. Yep. How much reserve should I have during a build phase? Depends on how big the project is. Or on rental projects, how much average should I have in case, let's say, all three quotes $100K? So I would be doing a 203K loan or a 203K streamline, or I would be doing a construction loan like I talk about. Construction loans are the best deals or the best loans to get because of how they're structured. They're fixed up front. Your fee is fixed. Your rate is fixed. You don't have to worry about refining later. It's not a burr thing. People that are burring don't have a good enough strategy put together. There's better strategy. I met another with 700 million who said, he'll teach me everything as long as I promise to teach someone else. He showed me how he underwrites. He raises their taxes by 20% and runs insurance at 1,500. I don't know what that means. Though seems raises their taxes rents by 20% and runs insurance at 1,500. I don't know. A lot less deals, though it seems a lot less deals will work. Well, yeah, that's the problem, is that he was doing that in a time where he was newer in the market. It was probably 20, 30 or 40 years ago. And the numbers were different then. And you used to be able, there used to be something called the 1% rule. 1% rule doesn't exist anymore. People don't use it for anything. I remember that I typed before I asked once. It's totally okay. I was just teasing you because your memory's so good and you ask a lot of questions. Your memory's so good, it doesn't bother me at all. You're all good. Josh Melby, since you don't use LLCs, when did you start putting properties into trusts? Right when I started planning, or right after I got married. So I've been married for 17 years. So we started putting everything in trusts right after that. Yep. What's revocable? It means it can be changed. Matt is called the Section 8 fag deal we talked about every day this week, never answered once. Matt is called, I don't know what that means. I'm assuming they are revocable. Yes. If you are comfortable sharing that information. Yeah, absolutely. In our course, we actually had a trust attorney on for 2 hours. Yeah. We're waiting for all that feed to be done to put that back in the course. But yeah, we had the people that I get people access to, and they're not access to like we put them on YouTube, because that would be a problem. We want people to ask real questions and we want people to get real answers. So that's why we do it in our private group. And in the course, I actually bring on bankers. I bring on roofers. I bring on plumbers. I bring on trust attorneys. I bring on eviction attorneys. I bring on all these different things because I want you guys to be able to ask brutal questions, have no fear of ramification because there is none. I want you to ask your most brutal, awful, horrible question that makes people potentially think differently about you. I want you to ask all that stuff. Because if you know the answers to those questions, you know how to navigate. And that's what I want to do for you. I want to make sure that I'm reducing the amount of drag that your business has so it can fly as fast as it possibly can. Trade Better 99, Lumberjack. I know you will not be paying for your kids' college. Yes, correct. Would you be gifting them a duplex when they graduate? No. Mrs. and I have a baby on the way and making future plans. Trade Better, congratulations. That's awesome. Nope, I don't want to remove the struggle from my kid's life. It's so important. I got to where I got to because I struggled so much. And I don't want to remove that struggle. And so, I tease the kids because they're just like, Dad, can you afford that? And I was like, great question. I can, you can't. Like, but Dad, nope, I can, you can't. So we had that conversation pretty often. But yeah, congratulations. That's awesome. The kids will all work in the business. If they want to go to school, they can pay for school themselves. But there's not a financial safety net there for them. It just isn't. That there can't be that for them. They have to make it on their own. And so I can't eliminate that struggle for them as much as I want to. It would be really easy, but I just don't want to do that. I'm not going to be the guy buying their kids, $60,000 cars when they turn 16, whether I can afford it or not. It's not going to happen. They're going to drive a hoopty. Do you know why? Because Daddy drives a hoopty. I drive a hoopty too. A 2006 Denali, Yukon Denali. I drive a hoopty. It's got 183,000 miles on it. I drive a hoopty, and they will too. Let's see. Dylan McMahon. How should I determine what insurance deductible I want? When should I increase it? Those are numbers that you have to run yourself. And the reason why is because it's preferential. For me, I rather have a $20,000 deductible, and then I'm sort of semi self-insured. One of the things that you can do is you can look at that and say, hey, I can make this deal work if I have a $20,000 deductible, but do I have $20,000 to pay that deductible if something were to happen? And for me, we have that $20,000 in cash. If something needed to happen where we needed to pay for something, we could do it. So that's the line that you're walking. So in the beginning, I wasn't $20,000 deductibles. In the beginning, I was $2,500 deductibles because if a $20,000 problem happened, I didn't have 20 grand to fix it. But when you can get on the other side of that, where you do that, that's a big thing. Yeah. Let's see. When the lawyer was on with Coach, yep. He talked about internal versus external liability. One thing he mentioned was, say you get in a crash, your properties would be protected since you don't own them personally. No, that's not true. That's not true, because the bank, if they see it's just you on the LLC, it's either a disregarded entity or they'll pierce the veil to get you anyway. It's just not true. And in most cases, most banks want you to collateralize your new loans with your assets. So that's not the case either. So it's just, that's incorrect, with all due respect to who he had. I think the world of Coach. I love working with Coach, but the fact of the matter is on the LLC thing, that's just wrong. That's wrong. Internal versus external liability. You have all the same liabilities. That's why I have amazing insurance with an umbrella. I have all the same liabilities. That's why it works that way. That's the idea. That's the hope. That's the goal. But yeah, as far as the whole crash thing, was, say you get in a crash. What crash? Like my death? Your properties will be protected since you don't. No. Give me more detail, because I want to make sure I'm answering that right. Dylan, congrats. Mark Ham. Thank you, Matt. You're very welcome, Mark. Would I need to contact my mortgage company or my insurance company to cancel the insurance from going through escrow? What you need to do more than likely is talk to your bank, not your insurance company, because your insurance company technically sends you a bill and you're supposed to send that bill to your bank, and then they're supposed to pay it in your behalf. That's typically what happens. Joshua Milby. Yes, I hadn't considered that as much as the scenario where if there was an issue at one property, LLCs could protect the ones not in the LLC. Could protect the ones. Yeah, but that doesn't matter, because the only thing that matters is insurance. So meanwhile, every deal that they expand with, they have to file tax returns on every single deal, on every single LLC that they have. And they're going to still be found with a disregarded entity, or they're going to pierce the veil unless you actually really have partners. And then it does make sense. But the other piece of that too is when it comes to the LLC side of things, your debt is more expensive. You need more properties to keep up with me if you're doing LLCs because you make less on all your properties. And I'd rather have the insurance and what problem is there going to be that if I have 500 and $1 million policies on my properties, and then I have, I don't know how big the umbrella is. I have to look at it because I think it's coming up for renewal too. But if I look at that umbrella, Johnny Cochran's not going to show up in that courtroom to get somebody the max on that number. And we maintain our properties. If they don't report an issue and something happens, can they get some money? Sure. They're going to hit the grand slam? No. That's kind of the idea. So, Nino, very true. Market way up north is very different from southern. I'm in southern market area. So it's different even southern to northern. So there's kind of like lakes region, but then there's mountains region, right? So you have mountains region, you have lakes region. You've got seacoast, which is another. You've got southern, which could be considered Keene, or western, which is considered Keene, southern, which could be Nashua, central, which could be Manchester. Manchester and Nashua are a lot more alike, but they're completely different from the Keene market and worlds apart from the ocean market, the seacoast market. The lakes region, completely different, right? If you look at a lot of those numbers, the top reps in the state sell real estate in the lakes region, right? Funny, because the average house there isn't the median home price. What skews it is the fact that waterfront properties on the biggest lake in the state. A lot of times those can be 5, 7, 10, 15, 20, $25 million homes. So they might end up doing $225 million in transactions, and they sold 20 homes. That's literally what can happen. Or they sold 30 homes or 40 homes. But I have friends that do 125 sides to a deal, and they did half what the Lakes region guys did because the assets are less expensive. But then you go to like the boondocks, like Berlin, an agent selling a property up there, she still makes 6%. But the problem is that a duplex goes for literally 40 grand. It's like our own version of Gary, Indiana. Robert Fernandino, trying to buy in Coos instead of Hillsborough or Rockingham County. Yep. In Berlin, you can buy a triplex for a third the price. Oh, it's a lot less than a third. It's like literally you can get triplexes for under 100 grand. Troy Roberts. Hey, Matt. So I've been thinking about trying to flip a property in order to build up capital to purchase multifamily. What is your thoughts on that? It's hard. It's hard if it's your first flip. The thing is that you want to try and, in all honesty, and this isn't just a plug, your best bet is my course. It's your best bet. It's the best bet. Because you need to be able to understand if the GC is going to rip you off. Your first flip is not going to make you money. It's not. It's almost always, it's a break even or slightly loss, in all honesty. Yep. Most people do not make money flipping. Even the flippers make a lot less than they say. Oh, look at this. We made $60,000. 30 grand of that disappears because of tax. 30 grand. So I left with 30. Okay. Closing costs, blah, 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 blah. Agent costs, blah, blah, blah. You better make 100 grand on that property if you want to end up with 25 or 30 left. And that's tough to make 100 grand on a property. Yep. Josh Melby, do you use the same code for all your properties on the locks, or do you switch them up? We give the tenant their own code, and then we have stored 4 codes for us that we use. One for a property manager, one for an agent, and then single use codes when we have a contractor that we trust that we need to get them into the unit. Yeah. Robert Fernandez, I also know successful Claremont investor where prices are lower. Yeah, Claremont's a tough one. Claremont is next to Sunapee, and Sunapee is very elite, very nice, beautiful lake, but a lot of New Yorkers. And Claremont is kind of gross, in all honesty. Will it ever get somewhere? Maybe, but they've been saying that for about 30 or 40 years with Sunapee doing what it did and hasn't gotten there yet. Yes, congrats to Trey Better. I'd love that. Robert, that makes sense. I would like to house hack. Yeah, live in Berlin would be a problem. Yeah, you ain't joking. So for those of you who don't know, New Hampshire starts like this, kind of wide at the bottom, and then it just tapers all the way to the top. And right here at the top is Berlin. And so it takes, I don't know, what does it take? Like 4 hours, 5 hours to get there? Because it's right, almost right on the Canadian border. And so it's very inexpensive to live there, but there's certain types of jobs and people that live in that area. And so the economy is not good up in the northern part of the state. The lower you get, the better the economy gets and the different types of jobs that you have. Yeah. I have a couple of friends that live in Lebanon, Enfield area. Yeah, that's not bad. Lebanon, Enfield, Lebanon is definitely increasing. Yep. Dylan McMahon, I called Section 8. Oh, thanks, Roland, very much for the super sticker. I appreciate that, pal. I called Section 8 deal we talked about, and they never answered my call. I called twice a day for 7 days. So there's a perfect example of a housing choice program that you don't want to work with. If it's that hard to get a hold of them, I think the other thing too is that if you call offering them a unit, it's probably going to get a different response. So it is what you're saying when you're leaving that message, but that would just be my guess. Robert Fairley, do you know if you use mileage deduction for a car, or if you scrap it, is it appreciation recaptured? My Nissan CTV is running very bad and the engine is starting to run rough. That I don't know. I'm not sure how exactly that works. I think, yeah, I don't know exactly how that works. I can't even venture a guess. Dylan McMahon, on the 1031 thing I said earlier, they are saying if the property you sold has a loan, you still can put that as a down payment. Doesn't make sense to me. You have to pay off the loan. Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me either. I don't think they've done very many 1031s. Because on a 1031, when you sell the house, the idea is, yes, you're paying off the mortgage, but the proceeds from that, that's the point. The proceeds, if you take any part of those proceeds, it's taxable. You've already gotten the write-off on your taxes for it. So therefore you can't take any of that money out. It goes right into a separate account that you can't touch. What's mileage when talk about taxes? I think it's 56.5 cents a mile. Mm-hmm. Robert Fairnelly. So going to be looking for a new used car. Yep. Going to Rochester tomorrow to look at a Prius. Yeah. Yeah. I really like the Priuses. The hybrid approach is definitely a better approach for sure. Trade Better. Thank you, everyone. You're very welcome, Trade Better. We're a community here, so I'm excited. We're excited for you. I've got 4. I can tell you that getting 1, awesome. Getting the 2nd, really cool. Now they have a playmate. Going to 3, that changed the game because it's now no longer man-to-man. It is now a zone defense, and we get eaten alive sometimes. It kind of sucks sometimes. Where you're just like, uncle. Like tonight was 4 of them against 2 of us for going to bed. And I say against because they were diametrically opposed to going to bed. So many things were done. Promises were made. So, but 1 is a blast. Take the time, enjoy it. I rushed back to work. I shouldn't have. I took about a week, and I should have taken 2 and just said pound sand if you don't like it. Because it was fun, but working from home was a little bit different because I could still go out and see my son, every 90 minutes. So it was really cool. Let's see. Dylan, do you look at median or average incomes or house prices when doing market research, and why that instead of other? I don't look at that. I look at vacancy rates. That's what I look at. New Hampshire as a state has a 1.7% vacancy rate. That's what I look at. Because I care about vacancy. I don't care about anything else. I don't care. I want the other thing that I look at. That's not true. The other thing that I look at is the employers in the area. So as an example, I wouldn't want Amazon and then no real other companies underneath that. Because then when Amazon leaves, you're screwed. I would much prefer to have 10 companies that add up to Amazon. And that way, if one of them leaves, BFD, not a big deal. Not a big deal for the market. So that's typically what I what I look for. So where I am, we don't have a bunch of these big, huge, massive employers. Like the biggest employer that we had, so a city of 30,000 people, and then the one next to it's about 17, and then the one next to that's about 4,000, kind of in that area. But they're also on the highway. I have access to the highway where they can get 20, 25 minutes south and 20, 25 minutes north pretty easily. So it's really about not having all these massive, employers. And so um, we don't have this massive employer that we try and focus. We don't have to focus on that where we have a bunch of people in one place. Nino, yes, if you're going to Berlin, you might as well take a nice trip to Canada. Exactly. Exactly. Dennis, Matt, thanks for sharing your knowledge. Dennis, my pleasure. My pleasure. Would never change it. Dylan McMahon, thanks for your time, Matt. Means a lot. Watched course again. Got to go wake up early, going to bed early. Good for you, Dylan. That's right. Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Dennis, REI Life Struggles. I have 5, but most are older. Yep. So someone with 3 or 4 under 10, way harder than my 5. Yeah. So that's the challenge for me is I have 4, 6 and under. That's the challenge is the 4, 6 and under because they all go to bed around the same time and no one's big enough to be like a real help. Like my 6-year-old is a pretty good help and my 5-year-old's a pretty good help, but the 3-year-old basically needs them to help. Yeah. So 4, 6 and under. So I have a 6-year-old son, a 5-year-old daughter, a 3-year-old daughter, and a 9-month-old daughter. 9? Yeah, 8 or 9. 8 or 9 months. So it's a lot. It's a lot, but it's fun. That's why I had to retire. That's why I had to retire. They were kicking my butt. Dennis, 3 boys. Yeah, 5, 2.5, and 8 months old after accumulating 13 rentals makes it enjoyable. That's exactly right. Exactly right. You guys please check out the Lumberjack Landlord on my Instagram posts. A lot of times when I'm waiting for somebody, so I don't jump on and do like a live like Dion. He's the man at that. And so a lot of times I'll just write something that comes to my mind. I'll put it on my Instagram. It's kind of like a diary for me, I guess. But that's kind of what I did today. So my Instagram is Lumberjack Landlord. You guys will see it. I post stuff there often. But that's kind of the way that I live my life. Today I was at my daughter's gymnastics at 8:00 in the morning and there until a little bit after 9. And then we did a bunch of stuff that I said, hey, let's do a daddy daughter day. And she's like, yeah, let's do that. And so then we just talked about all the things she might want to do. And she was like, and I know she loves daddy. Is that a surprise? And I was like, yes, I'm not going to tell you. She's like, oh, I love surprises. And she does. So I keep it from her. And I was like, she's like, daddy, why are we here? I was like, does daddy ever bring you on something that's not fun? She goes, no. I said, so then just have faith and fun. And so we did it. And she was like, you're right, Dad. That was awesome. And it was. And all we did was we went to a secondhand store where she got to pick out an outfit. So yeah. My kids we don't go shopping in the mall. We don't go buy expensive clothes. Almost all my kids' clothes are hand-me-downs in like a group of people that we hand stuff down to each other. But yeah, that's what works. Do I know I have 2 IG pages? I do. So one of them is for the marketing guy and one of them is mine because I didn't want the marketing guy doing all of the marketing stuff on my page. Yep. I said you just have to link them. And so he does that stuff there. So like a lot of the shorts and things like that run there, but that way it doesn't get in the way of all my messages. Robert Fernley, early to rise, but I like the silence of night. I understand. I'm actually a night owl myself. So it's not weird for me to be up at 11 or midnight. And that's tough because my kids wake up early and my wife is much better at waking up early, but she's also better at going to bed earlier. So yeah, so she's really good with that. Yeah, for sure. Well, guys, we're wrapping up on our time together today. It was a lot of fun. I can't believe it. I think we only got like 30 people at most at the same time on here tonight, which is crazy to me. But you guys are now that much smarter than everybody else because you guys learned exactly how you get free houses. But I would always tell you, it's going to take time. It is a strategy. It does take 10, 12 years to roll out. However, you will eventually find another up market. And when that does start to happen, this is the opportunity that you have that you're waiting for. This is absolutely the long game. It's the long game. It's the long game. It's the long game. Nobody ever gets into this and goes, in 5 years, I'm going to retire. No, that's not what you're going to do. That's not what you're going to do. And not if you did it right. And that's typically the case because that slow and steady wins the race. And you need that time to form more relationships, create more relationships with more people in the business. That was what slowed me down in the beginning. So you can do it faster than I did. You just need more relationships than I have because that's where the wealth is. And a special shout out to Matt, the mortgage guy. I know he doesn't watch my stuff because he's crazy busy and I completely understand. But let me tell you what a good guy Matt, the mortgage guy is. I called him today because I'm helping somebody with getting a loan done. And I thought some of the things that I saw in their loan docs were kind of garbage, in all honesty. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm going to give him a call. I give him a call and he picks up on the third ring. And he tells me, I said, hey, how's it going? He's like, good, good. He goes, hey, I saw that you were calling. He's like, so I had to pick up the phone. I was like, I really appreciate that. I just have a real quick question. Have a real quick question. I was like, hey, so then he answers the question. He's like, I was like, hey, so what are you up to? He goes, oh, I'm actually on vacation, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you picked up your phone on vacation. He goes, yeah, I saw you were calling. I was like, oh, you're killing me. This is the type of stuff that we're talking about. You guys need to create relationships like that. And it doesn't mean to be with somebody famous like Matt, the mortgage guy, even though he treats everybody the same. He's just a good guy. Right. And so, but you need to be creating those relationships where people will see you calling on their cell phone, they'll pick up. I can call any one of a dozen or two people right now at 10:30 at night and they would pick up their phone. And it's because they're important to me. And that just shows me that they respect me because they know if they called at this time, I'd pick up the phone. So do that. Luke Devine, Nino. Okay. Have a good night. Thank you, Nino. I appreciate that. Thanks for coming and hanging out to my fellow New Hampshireite. I appreciate that. Luke Devine. Yeah. Slow and steady buzz tune. I punched that in my memory weekly. Thanks, Matt. You're welcome, Buzztune. Luke Devine, why is it so important to find out how much the seller has on a loan if you were looking to get to 1031 into the property? So maybe I misspoke, but so it's not finding how much they have into it. That's not the thing. It's important finding out how much I'm going to have into it because I want to so if I 1031 and I buy something for $400,000, but I buy it with all my proceeds from a previous deal, but I'm buying it with all $400,000 in cash. Well, I don't want to keep that $400,000 in cash there. I actually want to refi out with my 75% loan to value. I want to refi out and recapture $300,000 of mine. Now it's technically a loan because it's not a taxable event. So I cash out, I get my $300,000 and now my tenant is paying the rent, but they have me at 15 or 16%. I'm making margin on their rent. And so I just created cash. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create cash from nothing and unearth equity that we have in those deals that it then allows us to run the business the way that we want to run the business, which is we end up being able to create more cash. Hi, Key. Good to see you, my friend. I'm so sad. We're actually just wrapping up, but it's always good to see you. And the kids are looking adorable. That's why for me, it's not a matter of tracking how much they own on the property. It doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters when I'm trying to understand what they might owe on a property, and I'll look up their deed and I'll look up their mortgage and see what's filed and when it started and all that other stuff. The only time I'm doing that is if I want to operate and talk about seller financing. That's the only time, because if they own it outright, then we can have a real conversation about seller financing. If they don't, it's more difficult. It's more difficult because let's say they owe $50,000 and it's worth 500,000. Well, that's 10%. Well, I could say, hey, I'll pay off your mortgage, but then they get nothing. So then I would have to pay off their mortgage and give them $50,000. But then they're like, I want $100,000. Well, now I'm putting 30% down, and I don't want to do that anyway. Thank you, Matt. Dang it, just mowed the lawn. I understand the feeling. I haven't been able to mow my lawn in 2 weeks because my mower broke and it's been in the shop and now it's finally ready. Excuse me, finally ready. But that's okay. Key, you will understand better than most the first 20 minutes of monologue that I did. I encourage you, please watch it. It will make you better. And you're already really good, but it'll make you even better. So guys, have a fantastic rest of your week. I will see you guys Wednesday. I think I've got Zoob. And I've got some other special events coming up and things that I'm really excited to bring to you guys. And I hope you guys just have an absolutely fantastic week. And I'll talk to you guys again soon. Take care, everybody. Oh, and please hit the like button on the way out. That would be great too. And forward this to somebody. Say, hey, this is a guy that I follow. Who do you follow? I think that people need to learn this stuff because I think that this gives it a much brighter light at the end of the tunnel. But anyway, I digress. Guys, thanks so much. Have a fantastic week and weekend, and I'll talk to you again soon in the next one. Take care, guys.